Courtyard in the heart of the palace, isn't it?
Decorated with orange trees on either side to make it look even more beautiful.
Splendid.
Hundreds of candles all round the top.
Look at them standing on the ledges inside the windows.
It was beautiful enough before, but now it's transformed into a nighttime spectacular.
And look, here's an orchestra, so this is a musical performance.
And they seem to be dancing on the stage.
Oh, it says it's a ballet, that's right.
And a ballet, Alceste, a tragedy in music, composed by Louis's own court composer, Jean-Baptiste Lully, one of the greatest musicians of his day, only the very best for Louis. The king was at pains to make sure his guests didn't miss a single detail of his palace. One visitor gushed that the festivities astonished the spectators by their magnificence, novelty, and pomp. Now this really is a scene, isn't it? A nighttime scene of fireworks and illuminations, the palace in the background, the fountains in the foreground.
What do you think, Helen, was the point of this book of engravings?
This is a big PR exercise. These are impressive pictures, even centuries later in black and white. But for the rest of Europe in 1664, this is how you do it.
So Louis compiled all the engravings, gave them to ambassadors, who then take them home to their own European king or queen and say, look and learn. This is how they do it in France. This is the way to hold a party.
And not just in France, but specifically at Versailles. Forget Paris. That was yesterday's news. Louis wanted the eyes of the world to be on the palace that he was building.
Once Louis had captivated his courtiers with the entertainments of Versailles, he found other ways to keep them enthralled to him. To keep everybody in their places, Louis turned his life into a kind of public spectacle. Every minute of every day was filled with these weird rituals, some of them quite ridiculous, which all the courtiers had to follow, as if it were a religion.
All the noblemen at court are required to present themselves at the appointed hour.
Dukes before marquises, I believe.
I'm with the Duke. Only a few, however, will be given the privilege of entering, observing, and in some cases participating.
Taking part in Louis's daily routines was a strictly controlled business. Only a chosen elite could share in his more intimate moments. The most important ceremony was the king's levee. His rising in the morning. It was as essential to life at Versailles as the rising of the sun.
At 8 o'clock sharp, the curtains of the state bed were drawn back to reveal the king. He may not have slept here, but he had to get back in time. And then he was greeted by his valet.
Good morning.
Next, in came the king's physician to check him over. His chamber pot was carried out, and this is really nice. In came the king's nurse that he'd had since he was a child to give him his good morning kiss.
Then came the privileged few who had the right to attend what was known as the Grande Entrée. They were all high-born nobles, and they helped the king into his shirt. It sounds menial, but it was a huge honour.
All you do is designed to be seen and admired. Dressing, shaving, drinking, and eating. They are no longer actions, but a performance. Everything you do is a display of wealth, authority, harmony, and modesty. And last, but by no means least, piety.
Louis thought of himself as a god, and now he was worshipped like one. Even the most powerful nobles were forced to bow and scrape. But observing Louis's strict daily routine could reap rewards. The clockwork timing of Louis's day meant that courtiers always knew exactly where the king was and what he was doing. And that meant they could engineer meetings with him. opportunities to ask for the favours that only the king could give. Like other monarchs, the king had the power to transform a courtier's fortunes. But Louis had his own special criteria for granting requests. As Louis progressed for Mass, courtiers would line his route, pressing on either side, desperate for a word in the king's ear. If they succeeded in catching his attention, they might ask a favour for a friend.
But if Louis thought that that particular nobleman hadn't spent enough time at Versailles, he'd turn the request down with the words, "We never see him. I don't know him." It was as if that noble had never existed. The message was clear. Courtiers had better sharpen their elbows and fight their way to the front of the queue. If they wanted to get ahead in life, they had to put in the hours at Versailles.
The nobles were now too busy vying for the king's attention to plot against him, and they weren't allowed to go back to their country seats where they could have fomented rebellion.
It was all part of this strange cult of the Sun King. It's as if Louis used his magnetism to trap his nobles here in the gilded cage of Versailles. Now Louis could get on with enjoying the pleasures of life. And there was nothing he enjoyed more than the ladies. He pursued one beauty after another, married and single, highborn and low. Not for nothing was his time in power known as the reign of love. Here are some of Louis's leading ladies. Now, kings of France often had two wives. One, a wife for business. In Louis's case, it was Maria Theresa of Spain. It was her job to represent an alliance with another country and to give him his official children or heirs. But then he would have a wife for fun, a mistress, or in Louis's case, mistresses. At any one moment, the chief of them was called the maîtresse déclarée, the declared mistress. I think it's very French that she had a sort of semi-official job title. Louise de la Vallière was Louis's first maîtresse déclarée. The story of Louise de la Vallière is intertwined with the story of Versailles itself, because Louis was falling in love with her at the same time as he was falling in love with the idea of his palace. They held trysts there, and the magnificent party, The Pleasures of the Enchanted Isle, was held to celebrate their love. Now, Louise's position as chief mistress was far from secure. The other ladies of the court all had their eye on Louis, and he was all too susceptible. When Louise came onto the scene, Louis was already having rather a scandalous relationship with Henriette of England. She was, wait for this, his brother's wife and his own first cousin. Not you.